Welcome into OutKick the show. I am your fearless leader, Clay Travis. I hope all of you are having fabulous Thursdays, wherever you may be across the country or indeed around the world. We got a lot to dive into here. Final show scheduled of this week. I will be back on Monday. Usually I'm out on Friday to do Fox News. Martha McCollum shows usually on at the same time. FYI, during college football and NFL season, we'll schedule it so that we have Friday shows typically for all of you. Also planning on doing gambling spectaculars. I mention all that because the NFL is back. We have an actual preseason game tonight before we even get to the month of August. July 31st, NFL action underway. Our long national nightmare since the Super Bowl is now over. Hallelujah. So we'll be doing a lot of fun, as we always do, with the latest in the world of the NFL and college football. I always say in the sports calendar, it is football season or it is non-football season, and that is certainly the reality here. Okay, bunch of different stories out there. Let me start with some sports stories. Shannon Sharpe basically being fired by ESPN over the sexual assault allegations that were levied by a girl that he was dating. They're not going to allow him to be on Stephen A. Smith's show anymore. He's no longer at Fox Sports anymore either. A lot of reactions pouring into that. This is where I would say Shannon's been smart. He has built a really good YouTube show. And even when those allegations came out against him, he kept right on doing that YouTube show. And I think, I don't follow the audience on a day-to-day basis, but I think the audience that he has that likes him basically stuck with him. And he eventually settled that suit from a civil liability perspective. Now, there was talk that he was going to get a $100 million podcast deal or something in that universe, and maybe now that's not going to end up happening in the same way. But what I would say is the world that has been created now, the value of distribution, I don't know from a big company if it has ever been lower. By which I mean Shannon Sharpe, this had been 10 years ago, and Fox won't employ him, and CBS won't employ him, and NBC won't employ him, and ESPN won't employ him, he would have had a real difficulty getting his voice out there because probably big national radio wouldn't touch him either, sports talk radio. YouTube, he doesn't ever have to worry about, by and large, shutting him down. And podcast, he doesn't have to worry about being shut down. And so it can be the case that ESPN has decided to cut bait, but I got a take for you. I think ESPN needs Shannon Sharpe more than Shannon Sharpe needs ESPN. And I am just utterly fascinated by the world that we're now in, where internet and television now has to take internet stars and put them on instead of creating its own stars. This is kind of a fun question. Who was the last person to become famous on sports television that none of you knew? I don't even know the answer. There's lots of people that have come out of the internet over the last decade, either YouTube or, a site like OutKick for me, or Barstool, or the Pat McAfee universe. Who is the last person to become famous on television? That is, you had no idea they existed, and then they became famous on television. It's a good question for the comments out there. There are lots of people who are famous on television now, but I don't even know how many people you can point to. Like Scott Van Pelt is famous, and he's famous because he was on television. Erin Andrews is famous, and she was famous because she was on television. But nowadays, everybody comes out of the internet. It seems like it gets hired. Who is the last person to become famous on television? Cowherd's famous. Skip Bayless is famous. They're famous because they were on television. I can't even think of a name. I honestly can't think of a name of somebody who has become famous off of television. Adam just texted me the cast of Stranger Things. Yeah, but I'm talking about sports. There are still people, and I would argue that's not technically television. That is streaming. That's the internet. Obviously, Netflix basically is the forerunner of internet and TV are one and the same. And I've made the argument on this show before, and I think it's a fun kind of sit around if you like media as much as I do. How many places can actually still make people famous? And I'm going to tie it in to Sophie Cunningham, believe it or not. I think being on the front page of Netflix is the best way to become famous in America today. If you said right now, hey, you can be anywhere in media, if you're a comedian, if you're a prognosticator, if you're an opinionist, whatever else, front page of Netflix can make you famous. I saw this with my friend Nate Bargatze, comedian, busting his ass for a long time. Used to do our local sports talk radio show, 104.5 The Zone back in the day. Nashville guy, same exact age as me. We graduated high school at the same age. He has, I think it was the Tennessee Kid, his first Netflix special just suddenly took off. And I remember I was with him at what day did Tennessee lose? I think it was to Georgia State, the Jeremy Pruitt years. I think it was like 2018, 2019. Look up whatever year that was. I was with him that day for the Vanderbilt football game. We were hanging out, and the Tennessee Kid was just starting to explode on Netflix. Everybody knew him. Everybody suddenly knew him at the tailgate, and he was like, yeah, it's gotten wild. That special, and now he's done multiple specials. Now he's probably the most famous, arguably, he may be the most famous comedian in America right now. When you consider how many different locations he sells out, traveling all over the country, doing so many different things. That, to me, was the first, okay, that was 2019. That, to me, was the first sign where I started to see, wow, the power of Netflix. His special got on the front page of Netflix. Everybody knew him. Super talented guy, great guy. Front page of Netflix can take you to superstardom almost overnight. Comedians will talk about this. You can go from, man, it's a drag trying to get your gig sold to your special pops on Netflix. Suddenly you sell out everywhere. So front page of Netflix, I think, is probably the most popular terrain, the most popular location that you could find yourself anywhere in the country right now. I would argue second place is Fox News. Fox News outrates every television network out there. I can tell you walking around, if you are a Trump voter over 50, you probably know who I am at this point. Now, partly it's Clay and Buck, but Fox News people watch it like crazy. I mean, it is insane how much people watch Fox News. Monster audience. I would argue those are the two most valuable entertainment locations out there right now. And YouTube is the most impressive, valuable platform. And I've been late to that. You know, probably if I could go back in time and you said, hey, Clay, what do you wish you had done differently? I probably should have focused more on YouTube and less on Twitter video. Now, we built a really good audience on Twitter video. But if I had started really aggressively focusing on YouTube and started to just do a show that was entirely dedicated to YouTube in like 2017 or 2018, probably have 10 million subscribers now. I mean, what do we have? 1.7 million or something on OutKick now, I think, on the YouTube page. But if I had just solely focused on YouTube starting about 2017, 2018, I think our audience would be way bigger now because I think YouTube is that popular. So front page of Netflix, front page of Fox News. Let me give you sports and let me give you politics, the two people who also. So Netflix can make you a huge star. Fox News can still, I think, make you a huge star. I think that's basically it in media. I don't think anywhere else you can go front page broadcast like everybody knows who you are. Fox News, Netflix, media. I got a theory, politics, and I got a theory, sports. Politics, it's Trump. If you are connected to Trump, you become super otherworldly famous. Nobody really knows J.D. Vance. He becomes Trump's VP. Everybody knows him. Pete Hegseth was on Fox News weekends. A lot of people who watch Fox News knew him. Defense Secretary, everybody knows him. Tulsi Gabbard, Lutnick. The cabinet, the penumbra of Trump's celebrity is such that it shines on everyone around him and makes them stars. So that's politics. I don't even think anybody would argue with me. The biggest star in politics is Trump, and his star burns so bright that the light shines onto everybody in his periphery as well. You know who it is in sports right now? Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark is so famous that she is making other people that otherwise nobody would care about super famous around her. Angel Reese from the women's college basketball arena. But now in the WNBA, Sophie Cunningham. Credit Colin Cowherd, just signed Sophie Cunningham to a podcast deal. Her Arby's deal goes mega viral. I believe she said, we'll talk about this next week because I don't think we have a clip on it. I think she said she added like 1 million Twitter followers right after she took out that basketball player who had knocked down Caitlin Clark when we had that super viral enforcer video. I think she says in her new podcast, basically, hey, I added 1 million followers almost overnight because that went so mega viral. It wasn't because of Sophie Cunningham. She's been playing for several years in the WNBA now. It went mega viral because Caitlin Clark is such a big star that the periphery of Caitlin Clark can make stars as well. Now, this has happened for years in the past, right? Like everybody on Michael Jordan's teams became super famous. You can still run through names. If they hadn't played with Michael Jordan, nobody would remember Bill Cartwright, Horace Grant, Steve Kerr, John Paxson, B.J. Armstrong, Bill Winnington, Luke Longley. Scottie Pippen was a big enough star that people would know him. But I just ran through 7, 8 players right there that nobody would even be able to name at all unless they had happened to be on the team with Jordan and become dynastic members of that those teams. Dennis Rodman was famous too. Like guys like Dennis Rodman and Scottie Pippen went to a different level of fame than they ever would have been if they hadn't played with Jordan. But there aren't very many of those guys. Back in the day, Tiger could elevate every other golfer around him. But Tiger, you can only play around typically with one other guy. So you had to be pretty good and be in the running. But Tiger elevated. I think Venus and Serena elevated. Right now, I would argue Caitlin Clark makes people around her famous that otherwise no one would know. And Sophie Cunningham is a great example. So, again, you guys can debate me on this. 4 interesting parts of the political media sports universe that otherwise would not be able to create stars. Netflix, Fox News, Donald Trump, and Caitlin Clark. I don't know that anybody else will put those 4 together for you, but I'd be curious. Hop in the mentions. Send me emails. I'm always curious if you think I'm missing something. I would argue those 4 have a unique power in media today, the likes of which isn't really existing anywhere else. Nobody's becoming famous in the WNBA other than for a connection to Caitlin Clark by and large. Nobody in politics really. I know AOC, but that predates. AOC to me hasn't made somebody else famous. Donald Trump has made a lot of other politicians famous, Netflix and Fox News. That's my argument anyway. Okay. And I started all that off by talking about Shannon Sharpe and how he has created his own universe, so he doesn't even need to worry that much about whether other people are supporting him. Kamala is not running for president. For governor of California. I do believe that she's going to end up running for president. So you can file this one away in a Clay Travis prediction, and you can circle back sometime in 2027. If she hasn't announced by May or June of 2027, which isn't that far away now, then I don't believe she'll be running. You may have heard us talk about it on Clay and Buck. I think Kamala is going to run in 2028. And I think ultimately she decided, what do I gain by becoming governor of California? Everybody already knows me. I'm talking as if I were Kamala. I already got 74.9 million votes or whatever the heck the total was that she got. It doesn't matter if I'm governor. And in fact, if I'm governor and I do a poor job, it actually reinforces all of the issues that people had with me about not responding well to questions and whatnot, such that I think she's going to run in 2027, she will announce. Now, why do I think that? And then I'll tell you strategically why I think she could actually end up being the nominee in a battle that's going to be fought that's actually behind the scenes but very important on this front. I think that Kamala has nothing else going on in her life. And I actually say that with some measure of sadness. If you told me tomorrow, hey, Clay, you can't do media anymore, then I think I'd be okay with it, especially while my kids are young. I would travel a lot. My kids are 17, 14, and 10. I would probably be even more involved in their life than I already am. I'd probably write books. I mean, I guess it's kind of hard to say you can't do anything in media, but I would probably write. I mean, if you told me I can't do television, I can't do video, I can't do radio, I'd probably want to write books. But if you told me I couldn't work at all, I honestly think I'd be okay with it. There are lots of ways that I could find. I'd golf. There's a lot of things that I haven't done that my schedule would suddenly free up. I'd play golf probably almost every day. Maybe I would be somewhat decent. I would find a lot of ways, I think, to fill up my days. I would read way more. I love to read. I don't have time now. My point is family, kids. There are lots of things that I would do. I don't know what Kamala would do. I think her entire existence, she didn't get married till she was basically 50. She doesn't have any kids of her own. I know she has stepkids. To me, she doesn't particularly seem to like her husband that much. And I don't think that's an indictment of her. I don't think Doug Emhoff is that likable of a guy. She now doesn't have a job at all. I think she needs to be in the political universe to have purpose in her life. I think it fills in her mind some void that otherwise isn't filled. I think she's going to run. That's why. I think this is entirely a psychological argument. Let me also tell you this. The battle over which is the first primary in the Democrat Party is going to be huge. Biden shifted it to South Carolina to try to protect himself because he knew James Clyburn and black voters were going to have his back, and there was no way anybody would beat him. But he had done awful in Iowa, and he'd done awful in New Hampshire. I think he finished 4th in Iowa in 2020, 5th in New Hampshire, if I'm not mistaken. Could be flipped. I could have flipped those. And then suddenly he wins South Carolina with Clyburn's endorsement, and he sweeps on to the nomination. COVID happens. They lock him up. We all know what happened after that, right? Hide him in the basement. Kamala Harris, if you look at the field, right, if you try to assess it, and I'm not Kamala's advisor, but let me tell you how I think this plays out and encourages her to end up running. Who is the minority voice? Karen Bass is a joke. LA mayor, she has no future. Stacey Abrams can't win any race at all. She has no future. I'm talking about black women. Who is the minority woman? AOC, okay, maybe AOC decides to run and box out Kamala. That's a possibility. But if I'm Kamala Harris advisors, I'm saying there is no black woman or black man that has the ability to appeal to minority voters like you do. We can make the argument that you took a bullet, proverbially speaking, for the Democrat Party stepped up, only had 100 some odd days to run. America didn't get to know you well enough. If South Carolina is the opening primary state, black voters are going to show up, black women in particular, and they're going to punch that ticket for you. You will then sweep all throughout the states where minority voters matter. You're not going to bomb in Iowa and New Hampshire where white voters matter more. You'll be the nominee. The black vote, Wes Moore's the governor of Maryland. I don't know. Maybe he's the real deal. Maybe he's not. Cory Booker's a joke. Laughably absurd. People are just, he just had his Senate speech like he has no hope. Who is the minority other than AOC that is going to rise up? And is there another black candidate? I just don't see it. Meanwhile, you've got Gavin Newsom, Mayor Pete, J.B. Fat Pritzker, Gretchen Whitmer, Josh Shapiro, a lot of white statewide elected officials that are all going to run in the same sort of universe and try to compete for the same voter. Meanwhile, the minority black voter is left out there with no particular attachment to anyone. In a contested primary, the black vote is arguably even more important. And unless Wes Moore rises up, or by the way, Andy Bashir, another sort of milquetoast white guy, unless one of those guys catches fire with the black vote, which I don't really see, candidly. Remember, Joe Biden had black voter bona fides because he had been Barack Obama's vice president. Bernie's going to be too old. I think the lane is actually not bad for Kamala. And somebody is going to sit down with her and explain that. Now, this is not an endorsement of Kamala Harris as a politician. I think she's awful. But I think strategically her lane, unless AOC comes in and tries to box her out, is actually a pretty defined lane without a lot of competition there. And so I think Kamala would have, not only is she going to run, in my opinion, I think she would actually have a lane to be the nominee. Now, I think, again, I'm not voting for her. I think it's a poor choice by Democrats if that happens, and I think Democrats may well try to box her out. But I'm just telling you that I could see how all of that could potentially play itself out. By the way, I wanted to show you this. All the talk from all these woke losers about the Sydney Sweeney ad. Can we see Beyonce for the Levi's ad? Beyonce did a Levi's ad that looks awfully similar to, there we go. I didn't know Beyonce was a huge Nazi. Just to point out how absurd the criticisms of the Sydney Sweeney ad are. Beyonce, also with cleavage, also with blonde hair, also in denim, basically did a very similar version of the exact same ad as Sydney Sweeney, and probably none of you saw it until we just posted it up right here. And I think it just kind of echoes with why this is being seen as such an absurd story and situation. Okay, let me hit right now. This is awful. Bernie Moreno, senator from Ohio, shared this picture, and I just want to tell you it's graphic, of a woman in Cincinnati. Her name is Holly, I believe, who was brutally attacked on the streets of Cincinnati. And not only was she brutally attacked on the streets of Cincinnati, but a councilwoman from Cincinnati. By the way, let me just pause here for a sec as you look at that photo. If you are a man and you ever lay hands on a woman, I think that your penalty should be far more significant than for a violent act that involves another man. I'm not saying that I think that men should be able to have fights with each other, all those things. I'm not saying it. I wish there was limited violence, right? I wish we had no violence in the country. But if you're a man and you see a woman get hit like this and you just stand on the side and do nothing, I think you are a complete coward. If you are a man and you see a woman get hit like this by another man, and your thought is, I want to make sure that I've got a video of it, and you do nothing, I think you are doubly a coward because you are aware of the significant awfulness of the act and you are doing nothing to stop it. And so this is being addressed directly to men out there, young men, a lot of whom watch this show or watch these clips. We got to bring back manhood. And a big part of manhood is standing up for women because men are bigger, stronger, faster than women. And so if you see a man abusing a woman, that should make you sick to your stomach. If you are a man and you in any way think about abusing a woman, you're not a man. You are a pussy. And so I think they should lock the guy up who did this when he is convicted, and I think they should throw away the key, and I would have no issue with him spending the rest of his life in prison for that, candidly. Because if you are willing to do that to a woman, you are, I think, too much an innocent woman who's doing nothing. You are too much of a menace to be allowed back out into the streets, candidly. Now, maybe when you're 70, we can reconsider. Maybe it doesn't need to be full life in prison because by the time you're 70, you're probably way less violent. But if you'll do that to an innocent woman, you'll harm a kid. You'll harm other women. You'll harm innocent young men, older men. You're an animal. To me, you can't be allowed back out on the streets. You belong in prison. And by the way, if you're an elected official and this is your response when you see these videos, that you actually cheer them happening, you should be. I think we've got this from a Cincinnati congresswoman. She's not a congresswoman. I think she's a council member. And she reacted by cheering on the beating of innocent men and women on the streets of Cincinnati. One of the reasons that we have the criminal justice system that we do is to send messages about what is and what is not considered to be acceptable behavior. This is thoroughly unacceptable. We need to send messages on this, and I hope that in Cincinnati they will react aggressively as a result. This is did we post this video yet, this footage? This is a Cincinnati councilwoman begging for the beatdowns to actually take place. This is what I was referencing. Shameful, indefensible. This woman should resign her post. She's clearly not worthy of representing the city of Cincinnati to be cheering innocent people beaten down like this. Okay, let me go ahead and hit some of your comments, a couple of them from YouTube and also from, I believe, from Instagram. I feel pretty confident I can handle any exercise class. Oh, this is a response to our Pilates instructor yesterday. That mess could dish out. As long as she has to keep pace with the class, I'd laugh as I watch her wilt. I find it hard to believe that woman is in incredible physical condition. I will say, I've never done a Pilates instructor class. I've done a Pilates instructor, my wife, but I've never done an actual class. I think they put you through some pretty brutal exercises there. There are lots of positions that they put people in the Pilates class, my understanding, from a flexibility perspective, that even I think men who are in good shape would have extreme difficulty being able to do. So I'm not very optimistic that I would fare well in a Pilates class. I also think, we're not talking about like just a spin class or something where you're on a bicycle. I also think the Pilates class is probably one of those where you would try to get out of bed the next day and you would have pulled muscles and aching tendons and aching muscles that like you never used before. Like, there's a back of your thigh muscle that somehow you haven't ever stretched before that you would be like in insane pain. So I would be careful about making that suggestion. As a third-generation veteran, what Josh Allen did, taking his hat off, class and respect. I'm a lifelong 49ers fan, but I want Josh to win a ring. Much love, Josh Allen. Yesterday, we had the video of Josh Allen taking his cap off to shake the soldiers' hands, 4 different soldiers, if I remember correctly, at Bill's camp. Look, I think the NFL is actually in a really good place here because I think the 4 best quarterbacks in the NFL right now, as I told you, in order, best quarterback in the NFL, Patrick Mahomes, second best quarterback, Josh Allen, third best quarterback, Joe Burrow, fourth best quarterback, Lamar Jackson. I think all 4 of those guys are actually pretty good dudes. And so as the front-facing faces of the NFL, as those 4 quarterbacks are, probably the most famous 4 guys in the NFL right now. I know some of the Patrick Mahomes penumbra we were talking about, fame, can kind of move around. Like Travis Kelce, he's dating Taylor Swift, so he would be famous no matter what. But before he was dating Taylor Swift, Travis Kelce was super famous because Patrick Mahomes, they were in big games. Everybody knew him. Brady back in the day made tons of guys famous because he was playing in so many big games. So did Peyton Manning. But I think all 4 of those quarterbacks so far seem to be really good dudes. And I think the NFL is fortunate that those guys are top brand ambassadors for the league. Okay. Last question. This is well said. On the Sydney Sweeney story, Shotsky, however you pronounce that, said, if this was a blonde-hair, blue-eyed trans woman in the American Eagle ad, all of the critics would be cheering. It's 100% right. Honestly, if Sydney Sweeney were not an actual woman, if a man were pretending to be a woman doing everything that she did in that video with blonde hair, blue eyes, that person would be considered a hero to them. I think that's true. I think that's 100% true. All right. Love all of you. DBAP unless you need to SBAP. I explained that on yesterday's show. Please go click like and subscribe on YouTube, on Instagram, on TikTok, on Twitter. You can find me wherever the internets allow people to spread their blessings and their news. I hope all of you have fantastic weekends. I will be back with you on OutKick the Show Monday. I will be on Clay and Buck tomorrow, and I'll be on Jesse Waters on Fox News tonight. Love you guys. See ya tomorrow.